a racial slur spray painted
Local high school are calling for hate crime charges against the people who spray painted racist.
On Sunday, August 9th at 1 a.m., the N-word was spray painted along with other inappropriate and hateful things on the Calvert High School football field for everyone to see. In an attempt to spread love, the Calvert High School staff responded by putting athletic jerseys on the field that spelled out "No Hate Here" with a heart at the end. Although it was appreciated, we the community, but more specifically the youth, feel that it was not enough. It was a good response, but it was just another short-term solution to the systematic problem we know as racism. It is for this reason that the Become One project in Calvert County Public Schools reached out to the youth of our community to hear them and begin a discussion to work towards a long-term solution that instills trust, equality, and love. To do this, we came up with the idea of a panel to share how us kids feel about the incident and racism in general in the county to older adults. This panel was filled with respected members who cleared their schedules and came together with the hope of beginning to answer the questions of the youth and community that ensued from the incident. These questions were gathered from a Twitter post made after the incident, and the result was over 30 responses and almost 200 shares and retweets. Because of the need for fluidity in the video though, we were not able to incorporate everything from these responses, but the best effort was given to combine and select the ones that could be answered the best. From all of these responses, we constructed 6 questions to be answered by the panel. This hate crime just happens to be the incident that caught the attention of everyone. Racism in our community is not new, and people of color have been feeling it for centuries to the point where these acts and these microaggressions are becoming unnoticed and forgotten more and more every day. This is not okay. We cannot continue to let our voices, history, family, everything about us to be belittled. It is time we voice our concerns about these issues and the respect that we deserve. That is why we have named this series, Let's Just Talk About It, to do just that. Talk so our community can understand what we want, no, so they can understand what we need, deserve, and demand. I know this will not suddenly fix this serious problem, but my hope is that it starts the conversation so that we can move on and move forward together towards a final long-term solution that gives justice for all. I would like to thank you all ahead of time for helping start the conversation with responses, shares, and likes. I would also like to extend this thank you to Become One in Calvert County Public Schools for spearheading this idea and running with it in such a short period of time. I would also like to thank you for just hearing our voices in a time when we feel unheard. Please enjoy the next few videos, and our hope is that you take away something valuable from them. Thank you. There seems to be a disconnect between the younger population and adults. We feel that racism is here and we experience it as well, but we also feel like adults don't really understand. So my question to you all is, do you all believe racism exists here in the county? And do you have a true understanding of how it affects the younger population and how we feel it?
So undoubtedly, I think racism exists in the county. I think racism exists throughout the United States. There is systemic racism, both locally and nationally, and there's a history of it in America. Racism has changed over the course of history in Calvert County, and the question is not whether there is racism in the county. The question is, to what extent does it exist today, and where is it felt within the county?
People of color are treated differently than whites. In the school system, blacks are disciplined more frequently and more harshly than whites are. In the judicial system, blacks are arrested more often than whites are for the same offenses. They're stopped more often, and these are numbers, not opinions. In the judicial system, they are punished more harshly than whites, jailed more often than whites in the system. So that's the systemic part of it.
From my perspective as a sitting board member, I hear it firsthand from families, students who come to me sharing their experiences that they face with their peers, with their educators, teachers. So it definitely exists in the county.
Being a black man, I've actually experienced it several times growing up myself. So unfortunately, it does still exist in this county. I wish it didn't, but it does.
As to the question of, do we understand how the youth feel? The honest answer for me is no. I grew up doing segregation, so I grew up during a time where it wasn't just that somebody was staring at you in the store, it was that you couldn't go in the store. It said whites only or no colored allowed. I grew up in segregated schools where they said you're not good enough to go to school with white people. The kids nowadays can go wherever they'd like. Okay, so it's a little harsher view of what racism is that I have than what the youth have. Okay, to me it seems like it's a lot easier for the youth than what I went through and what my parents went through. So there is that disconnect and sort of a lack of understanding where we're saying, hey, you need to toughen up, look what we went through.
I also think that it depends on the side of privilege one may find themselves on. For some of us, it may not take us totally offhand for the situation that happened with the N-word being spray painted on the football field. We may not say, well, I didn't think that that would happen, I didn't know that that would happen, but we're not totally taken off guard that anything happened, that something happened at all. Because it's part of our day-to-day lives. But for those who don't experience it and walk through it in their day-to-day lives, and then choose to discredit those who share their experience, then one can say that I don't understand, because in a sense, sometimes people choose to keep their head in the sand.
My own child experienced racism as a middle schooler, and two 12-year-old students called her out of her name. Again, she was minding her own business. They're picking it up from somewhere because they're not innately born into being a racist. But our culture, our country, the systemic issues that we face today, that we still face after 400 years of injustices, continue to allow racism to breed and grow and flourish, which is a huge concern, a huge problem, and unless people are educated and express some type of empathy for others, it will not change.
I think the older generation does not know what students are going through unless they're proactively engaging into conversations with students. We have to be proactive to make sure that we are asking the tough questions and perhaps giving the space and building trust with the younger generation so they feel empowered to answer those questions honestly. The overt racism that has bubbled up and ended up emerging on the Calvert High School football field is something that I think also caught the older generation by surprise and took the wind out of her sails. So the younger generation will react to those things. They'll hear about it very quickly. Knowledge and information is passed with tremendous speed through social media.
So the youth, I didn't understand how they feel for a long time. I grew up in this county still seeing white-only signs, still understanding that the color of my skin, I was judged by the color of my skin. And I realized that the kids that I mentor and I coach now, they didn't grow up that way. They actually grew up having a black president. The way I grew up wasn't the way they grew up. I grew up being taught by my grandparents that the color of my skin I would be judged by. And my son became extremely angry. And he asked several questions, and I realized he didn't live the way I had lived. That he didn't grow up being taught by his grandparents the way I had been taught. He didn't understand that the color of your skin was a big part of being oppressed. He didn't understand that what he perceived the world to be wasn't the world. This generation feels like something has been taken away from them that we actually hadn't gained yet. We're still fighting to be treated equally, and they hadn't seen that.